video, we are going to discuss about the various blood vessels that are present inside the kidney. Now, we have to understand that in the kidney, it is the blood that is getting filtered. So, the main function of kidney is filtration of the blood to remove its impurities, which we will discuss in further in the functions of the kidney video. So, blood has to enter the kidney. In fact, the total renal blood flow. Now, what do you mean by renal blood flow? Renal blood flow is the amount of blood that is entering into your kidneys. Now, this is somewhere around 1200 milliliters. Okay. In fact, it is 20 to 25% of the total cardiac output. Now, you know what is cardiac output. We have already discussed this in the body fluids and circulation chapter. Cardiac output is the total amount of blood that is coming out of the heart, right? In that, 20 to 25% amount of the blood enters into the kidneys for filtration. Okay, and the filtered blood has to be taken away from the kidneys. Now, along with filtration, the kidneys is made up of tissues, so it also needs oxygen, and another major supplier for oxygen is blood. So, for filtration purpose and for nourishing the renal tissues and the renal cells with oxygen, nutrients, proteins, all of that, blood has to enter the kidney, and once its work is done, the blood has to exit the kidney. So there will be lot of major blood vessels, minor vessels that will be present in this highly vascular structure, which will we see one after the other. Now let us start with the entry of the blood. So from the heart, you will have something called as the thoracic and abdominal aorta. Thoracic and abdominal aorta. Okay, so this abdominal aorta, it branches into something called as a renal artery. So this is called as a renal artery. Wait, let me write it. So aorta branches. It branches to form renal arteries. So this is our renal artery. There will be two renal arteries. One will be entering into the left kidney and another one will be entering into the right kidney. So this renal artery enters into the kidney via this space which we have already discussed, known as the ileum. Once it enters this renal artery, this is the renal artery, right? So it branches into two major segments. Can you see here? It is branching into two major segments, and this is called as the segmental artery. Segmental artery. And this segmental arteries further branch. Can you see? They will further branch into structures which are entering and covering the medulla like this. Okay, so these are called as interlobar arteries. Okay, so this is the renal artery which branches into the segmental artery, which further branches into the interlobar arteries. Lobar arteries. Now from there, the movement or the vessels, as you can see, they are becoming smaller and smaller, and now the vessels, whatever vessels is there, you have to report them in the medullary region. So what we are going to do is we are going to take a medullary region and we are going to expand it, so to see how the interlobar arteries are further getting divided into and into what. So here I have taken one medulla and I have extended it. So this will be the cortex region. So this is the cortex region and I have one medullary region. So this is my medullary pyramid representing the medulla. Okay, now as we have discussed, these arteries here which are surrounding the both sides of the medullary pyramid, we call them as the interlobar arteries. Okay, now these arteries, they, if you can see, they move upwards and then they branch into two paths, one going towards the cortex and one surrounding the apex of the medulla, the base of the medulla. Can you see here? So these are called as your arcuate arteries. Let me write it here. These are called as your arcuate arteries. Okay, now each arcuate artery, it branches off like this. Can you see this tree-like branches that are coming out? So these branches, these tree-like branches coming out, it is called as the cortical radial artery. Cortical radial artery. Okay, and it is exactly in the cortex region. These radial arteries, the cortical radial arteries, they are coming from the arcuate artery, and the branches are coming in the cortex region, right? So that's why these are called as cortical arteries. And if you see here, each corticular radial artery, it is forming into a ball-like structure. In fact, when you see the nephron structure, you will see about this much in detail. This ball-like structure, it contains two major arterioles. One will be the efferent arteriole, which is coming from the cortical radial artery, and the other one will be the efferent arteriole. When we study the structure of nephron, you will clearly see where this efferent arteriole and efferent arterioles are coming from. But remember, cortical radial artery will give rise to efferent arteriole, which will give rise to the efferent arteriole. So with this, all the major arteries and their branches are done. Now what happens is, there will be a small peritubular capillaries whose location you will understand when we explain the structure of the nephron. So all of this, let us say, this whole structure is present in that ball-like structure which we call as the glomerulus. Okay. Now, there will be a group of capillaries called the peritubular capillaries, which will come from the efferent arteriole, and then they will come out into this blue-like structures which are called as the venules. Okay, these venules later join into the bigger cortical radial venules, which will be adjacent to the cortical lateral artery. Can you see here? This is the radial artery and this is the radial venule. They are just adjacent to each other. Okay, then these radial venules, they form a bigger branch. They form a bigger branch which is coming, let's say, from here. So this is the cortical radial venule, and it is coming from this branch. They'll join to form a bigger branch which is called as the arcuate vein. And the arcuate veins will join to form the interlobar veins. Okay, and then we'll come out of the medulla and go back to the kidney. So I hope the blood vessels in this structure is clear, and I hope there are no doubts. Now let us go back to the original kidney diagram. So when we come back out of the medulla, so this is my, let us write them together again. So here I am having my arcuate vein, the blue one. This is my interlobar vein, and the interlobar veins are all joining. All the interlobar veins are joining to this branches here. Okay, so they become, these branches, they become our segmental veins. And finally, all the segmental veins join into this massive vein which is called as the renal vein, which exits through the ileum. And this renal vein further joins into the inferior vena cava, so that all the deoxygenated blood is carried back to the heart, whereas the renal artery is coming from the abdominal aorta. Okay, so this is the interlobar artery and this is the arcuate artery. So this is how so many blood, I have told you in the introductory video only that kidney is a highly vascular structure. Now you can see why there are so many blood vessels and so many intricate networks that are present in the kidney. That's why it is called as a highly vascular structure.
For more content, like, share and subscribe to www.i-win.in.